As you know, the OIA protocol requires multiple observations. This video will focus on what counts as multiple observations in the peer review process. Especially in clinical and laboratory settings, the question I often get is, what counts as an observation? What counts as multiple observations? And how much is enough? Ordinarily, we'd say that a single observation is a complete learning experience determined by the instructor goals or the student learning objectives. When we observe classroom teaching, it's more straightforward. A single observation is a single session in which there are finite learning objectives, and observing 2 sessions would count as multiple observations under the OIA protocol. But this can be tricky in clinical settings because we wouldn't want to limit a clinical observation to a single patient encounter. In clinical settings, the approach to teaching and participation of learners depends on the demands of each clinical situation. So you will likely need to allow for more time to observe as faculty interact with students across various types of clinical situations. This might include observing as faculty discuss with students their interpretations of labs and imaging. Multiple patient encounters, which also allows you to observe how faculty adapt teaching. 1 or more patient presentations, and perhaps to observe how they leverage interprofessional consults as teachable moments. The bottom line is, when you're doing observations in clinical settings, there can be lag time between encounters or events as well, and so you want to allow sufficient time to make observations. In a laboratory setting, 1 observation might be an instructor modeling how to set up a procedure or experiment. For your second observation, you might choose to observe a lab group meeting or a meeting with an advisee. Either of these would give you a chance to see how the faculty member builds rapport and uses inquiry to guide learning. In some ways, this is much like observing the one-on-one or small group interactions in clinical settings. So if you're comfortable observing clinical teaching, it isn't a big leap to making observations in a laboratory setting. Up next, tips for writing the evaluation letter.